Good evening. Welcome back to another edition of EclipseClick videos. In today's video, I'm going to talk about a few exciting updates and improvements to the software that's going to make it a lot more easier for you to capture your Eclipse photos. Prominent features being support for automated bracketing, support for solar filter types, and a few other things. So let's get on with it. As you can see on my screen, I have EclipseClick running. As of today, it's on version number 0.1.112. When you open EclipseClick for the first time, you will now see a banner, which I've disabled for now, but you will see a banner that will take you to a link like this, which will show you the changelog. And this is going to be pretty useful for users to know what updates I'm pushing to EclipseClick. This is also available on the EclipseClick website, so you can directly refer to the changelog. Next, let's get to some changes on the equipment page. First thing you'll notice is I've renamed a few things around. What used to be called DS-USB cables are now named as shutter cables. And the reason being, my plan is to add support for a lot more cables than just the DS-USB. Next, I have added support for specifying solar filters. Now, there are different kinds of solar filters. Typically, Thousand Oaks, Seymour filters, Beta Astro solar filters, basically anything with Mylar sheets typically has a stop ratio of 5.0, and for most part, I end up using this configuration for my solar filters. There are a few other filters, specifically Beta Astro solar photo, or if you're using glass solar filter, you would pick number 14 Welder's glass, or if you completely want to skip solar filters, you can just specify no filters. You can also specify an optical density value in case these presets do not work for you. It all depends on the kind of solar filter you're using. Everything else is the same, so I'm going to go ahead and connect my cameras. I have multi-camera control enabled, and I'm gonna operate two cameras in today's demo. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna pick Canon to begin with, and I have the Canon 7D Mark II, so I'm gonna connect to it. A few changes here. So there is no more shutter speed test. Shutter speeds for the shutter cables have been proven to be unreliable, and the best way to move forward is your camera's approximate FPS when it comes to shutter cables, and you would go ahead and specify that value here. So for example, for Canon 7D Mark II, I know that it's about 5 to 7 frames per second, and that's what I've set it to. I'm also going to go ahead and connect the shutter cable. I know my DS-USB is connected to Canon 7D Mark II, and I'm gonna also connect another camera, so I'm gonna click on add another camera, and I have the Nikon D7200, so I'm gonna click connect on it, and I'm gonna go connect the shutter cable for it, and I am going to set it to this. Okay, so back to the test settings. before you start the script wizard, it's important to set these values correctly. The Canon ED SDK button has a test button. This lets you test your body's burst rate through the SDK, not through the shutter cable, but through the USB connection. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit test on this, and you might be able to hear clicks. Okay, so through the SDK or through the USB connection, I'm getting a burst rate of 1.4 FPS, which is pretty typical for a USB connection. Now, again, mind you, this burst rate is different from the burst rate through the shutter cables. The shutter cables is almost always going to be a lot faster, and this is the rate that you would see advertised for cameras typically. So Canon 70 Mark II supports something like 7 frames per second. That's solely through the shutter. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and set 5 FPS just to be conservative for now. And one of the new additions is a test that checks whether your camera body supports automated bracketing or not. So I'm going to go ahead and click probe to begin with, and this checks through the SDK what kind of automated bracketing is supported by your camera body, and it says up to 7 hold, which means your body supports the following AEB settings. So you can do 2 captures, 3 captures, 5 captures, or 7 captures through AEB. And then once you set, let's say I want to test 5 captures. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and click fire. The fire button will actually trigger the automated bracketing captures, and in this case it will attempt to take 5 captures in a set of bracketing. All right, so as you can hear, it was able to capture 5. Now, the important point here is whatever value you set in the dropdown needs to match the AEB setting on your camera body. I'll repeat. Let's say you set the body value here to 5. As soon as you do that, you would want to go back to your camera body and manually set the AEB settings to 5 captures. This is important because not a whole lot of camera bodies support setting the AEB setting through the SDK. This is a limitation of the SDKs, unfortunately, and there is nothing I can do about it. I'm hoping the manufacturers can provide an updated SDK version where we can set these values directly through the SDK. Okay, what next? The usual readiness checklist. I have made sure I've set the lens to manual focus. There's no autofocus. And I'm gonna do the same thing for my camera 2. Again, I'm gonna perform the test here. All right, and if you can hear from the recording, I'm getting a 1.9 FPS on my Nikon D7200. I'm gonna be a little more conservative in frames in the shutter, the shutter connection. So I'm gonna set it to 4 frames per second, and I'm gonna probe for AEB. Yeah, so Nikon has a much better AEB support. It supports up to 9 frames, which is pretty impressive. But I'm gonna, because my camera body is set to 3 frames, I'm gonna match it here, and I'm gonna click fire. And as you can hear, it's gonna take 3 captures. There you go. In case you noticed, Nikon bodies, or at least in the body that I have, shows a distinct delay between the fire button pressed here and the actual fires that happened on the camera. I think this would differ from model to model or body to body. So it's important that you would want to test this feature with your specific camera body. All right. Everything else is the same. You can, update the ISO, shutter speed, aperture, white balance. Want to make sure your file format is RAW, and you want to make sure your drive is continuous high speed for any camera body. Okay. Of course, you can also connect, and you should connect a GPS receiver. It's going to be an essential component of your Eclipse capture setup. I do not have a GPS with me right now, so I'm not going to display that feature. But you must have seen this in the previous videos. There's been no changes or updates to the GPS functionality. Okay, you'll see activity log in this log window. This is going to be pretty useful for you to determine what's going on. And it emits useful logs. Like for instance, the burst rate, so on and so forth. AB. Cool. What next? Let's go to Script Wizard. Okay. Before going to Script Wizard, I will quickly go to the Eclipse tab. Again, no changes here. You will see the animation of the Eclipse path. It's a little bit distorted. That's just the nature of the maps. The outer lines show the path limits, and the center line shows the umbral region. Okay, I've picked a location. You can add a new location. You can use your GPS. In fact, when you're practicing your Eclipse setup, plan to arrive a few days ahead of time to the final location and use the GPS to create your final script. It's very important that you get as accurate as possible on the location, because your contact times will depend on your location. Okay. Yes, you definitely want limb corrections applied. You don't want to skip those. I usually go with the photospheric radius, and I stick to Bailey's beads limb corrections. Cool. All right. Now next, Script Wizard. Quite a few changes to the Script Wizard. So one of the biggest enhancement is you have the ability now to edit your existing script. Additionally, you get a validation message in case your scripts or your generated scripts or your customization results in straying away from Fred Espinak's table. As long as you know what you're doing, you're free to choose any exposures that you would like. The validation is more for if you want to exactly go with Fred's recommendations for Eclipse exposures. This provides you an easy way to do it. All right, so edit script is again the same interface that you normally see with the Script Wizard, and it takes you to this exact view that you would normally see for a new script. All right, I'm gonna go to new script. All right, again, the same as before. You pick the eclipse. You can of course change the eclipse, but I guess everybody today is focusing on the August 12th, 2026 eclipse. Okay, then I pick the location. This is just a sample location. In reality, as I mentioned, you'd want to pick a location that works for you or that you've chosen for your setup. Right. Yes, you want limb corrections for sure. Go with Bailey's beads and photospheric solar radius. Yes. Now, I want to name it Canon script 0607 2026. Just gonna go with today's date. You don't have to add any description. What vendor are you writing the script for? This is relevant for especially for multi-camera setups, and if you have if you're working with multiple models. Okay. There's this new section here that talks about optics and sensor configuration. First, this section is going to detect your sensor size. That helps in performing calculations for prominences, corona, earthshine, Bailey's beads, chromosphere, basically all phenomena. You'd want to set the focal length in case you're using a telescope or if you're using a lens. I'm going to go with 400 mm because I usually use a telescope of focal length 400 mm and f ratio of f5.6. As you can see, there are a few presets for the f number or the f ratio, but you don't have to be limited to these presets. For example, I can set this value to f6.6 depending upon the optics of my telescope. You can work with your base ISO. I typically keep it to 100. You can choose whatever you want. For sunny skies, I would recommend 100. You can obviously customize it in the later step, and I will show you how. But for now, I'm going to go with f5.6. Sensor size has been correctly detected. These are the exposures. Now, I've added another section called extinction correction. Everybody knows that the August 12th eclipse is going to be super low in the sky, and based on that, this section, based on your location, will make a determination of whether you should apply the extinction correction or not. And what this section says is, based on my location and the optics, I do not need to apply for correction. But let's say on another location, this is recommended. And so if I apply, you can see that the computed exposures are reduced by around 2 stops. But for now, I'm going to go without any correction. Okay. The next section, the solar filter, will determine your partial exposures. I'm going to go with ND 5.0 because I typically use the 1000 Oaks filter. Okay, what kind of connection? Of course, I'm going to go with serial connection, which is the shutter cables. All right. Now, this is the important part. Yes. If you recall, we set the burst rate for shutter speed to 5 frames per second. And we've also determined that the camera body supports 2, 3, or 5 or 7 frame automated bracketing exposures. All right, so based on that, I can go ahead and let's say I want to take 5 captures of diamond ring, and you can expand on it. You can see that the shutter speed has been calculated to 1/2000th of a second for diamond rings, and it's selected bracketing, which means it's gonna take multiple exposures of varying shutter speeds for the diamond ring. It's gonna, based on the calculation, it's gonna take 1/4000, 1/2000, and 1/1000 exposures. Okay, you can obviously change this, and the preset here for diamond ring, you'd want to keep it as a diamond ring. If you pick something else, you're gonna get wildly different exposures that's just not compatible with the features you want to capture during diamond ring. Okay, all right. You can obviously, let's say if you don't want to go bracketing for diamond rings, you can just change it to single shots, and it'll just take 5 shots. But I'm gonna go with brackets. Okay, Bailey's beads. For Bailey's beads, the default is single, which makes sense, and it's going to take 1/8000 shutter speed exposures. Excuse me. Chromosphere, again, single exposures. Prominences, single exposures. Corona. This is where bracketing becomes important. So the inner corona, based on Fred's tables and the optics, the script has generated 3 exposures of 1/250, 1/125, and 1/60th of a second. And again, I mean, you can change this if you like. If you choose native AEB, the camera will exclusively use your automated bracketing mechanism. And sometimes, what I've seen is, depending upon camera bodies, this and the SDKs being used, this sometimes works, sometimes it does not. If you go with shutter cable, it's just not gonna do any kind of native bracketing through the camera body. It's just gonna manually update the shutter speeds and perform the exposure as if it's been manually set. I prefer using auto. Now in auto, the script is gonna attempt a native automated bracketing exposure. In case the native automated bracketing fails, it's going to fall back to shutter cable mechanism. So you get some sort of redundancy at the expense of a few milliseconds of check, which I think is worth the trade-off. Okay, so I'm going to take maybe 3 sets of inner corona. I'm going to take maybe 2 sets of outer corona. Okay. Again, the same features apply here. You can either go with native AEB or shutter cable, or leave it to auto. The exposures here are noticeably higher because you're trying to capture the outer corona. Okay. I may go one more. Let's see. All right. And then towards the egress, yes, Earthshine. Yeah, single exposures. 30 seconds seems wrong here. So then you can just update it to 4 seconds, for example. And there you go. Towards the egress, towards C3, yes, you're taking prominences, you're taking chromosphere, Bailey's beads, and I want to take. Okay, so now important thing to recognize here is if you're selecting bracket, this means that it's going to take 1 set of diamond ring brackets. So it's going to take 3 exposures. So bear that in mind. So if you take 2 sets of brackets, you're going to get a total of 6 exposures. And the same thing applies to here. I actually made a mistake here. So if you're picking bracket, you want to make sure that you probably want not more than 10 or so exposures for diamond ring. All right. Lastly, you're gonna take a few shots before C1 and after C4, and obviously the partial phases. And this is where you can pick the interval for your partial phases. And in this case, I've set it to capture every 5 minutes. You can change it depending upon the cadence that you like. Okay, and now I'm going to click Generate Timeline. Now it's generated this timeline and it shows this nice visual. Around C2, you see this busy activity around the diamond rings and Bailey's beads and chromosphere phenomenon, and then the whites are coronas, outer corona, and then the earth, 2 sets of outer coronas, and then 2 sets of earth shines. Excuse me. And you can scroll. You can also switch between totality, which shows you the entire set of exposures. But let's say if you wanted to just look at totality exposures, you pick this, and the totality exposures expand into your view. The script sort of automatically recognizes that your images need to shift a little bit, and it makes those adjustments. For most parts, you can leave it alone. You don't have to. You won't have to regenerate or edit it. If you select too many captures for a phenomenon, you will see that some images would get dropped, and those would show up here. In today's example, there are no dropped images. Okay, I'm going to click continue. I'm going to save. Now that's the script saved for Canon. And now I'm going to generate a new one real quick for Nikon. Okay. Excuse me. I'm going to go ahead, click next, same location. Yes, I want corrections. I'm going to pick Nikon. I'm going to go with f500 and 6.6. That's non-standard. And Nikon, again, it's picked the right sensor size, solar filter, and there you go. So let's say for this one, I don't want bracketing, I want single shots, and I'm gonna take 6 single shots of 1 by 1000. I can maybe lower it down to, let's say I want 1 by 400. Bailey's beads is fine, chromosphere is fine, inner corona, yeah, that looks okay to me, outer corona looks okay. Okay, so outer corona, I want to maybe pick, yeah, in this case, it did not set a value, so I'm going to set it to 4 seconds. This could be a bug, I'll take a look at it. But you probably want to make sure that these are being set correctly. 1 by 60. Oh wait, no, 4 seconds is too long. I'm gonna do 1 by 25. I'm gonna go with 1 by 15. All right, and then Earthshine, let's see, 30 seconds. It's too long. That's 4. I'm gonna, yeah, this is probably buggy. I'll fix this in a new update. prominences, and then there you go, diamond ring. Perfect. So I'm gonna, yeah, this looks okay. Dropped. Okay. Click continue. Save your script. Okay, so it says 10 out of 86 capture lines stray from SPNX table, and let's take a look at what's happening. So I can go ahead and click preview. Oh, this is a nice feature, by the way, in case you haven't seen it. The Eclipse preview gives you sort of an exaggerated view of how the Bailey's beads would look like. And this is a fun little thing where you can exaggerate the limb quite a lot. Like, yeah, this will never happen, but the limb is probably going to be like this. And you can see what's happening at C2 Bailey's beads. And you can sort of get an animation of how you would expect this to look. And then at max, and then at C3 on this side. So you can zoom in into C3. Let's see. Oh, there you go. There you go. And then you can adjust the limb. Yeah, it's a little bit funny, but it sort of gives you an idea of how those Bailey's beads are generated. All right, and then you can get sort of like an animation based on your capture sequence of how the Bailey's beads would look like for your sequence. Yeah, it was a little fun experiment. But if you go back, yes, so yeah, you can disable preview, you can enable preview, and then let's see, let's look at the details. Yes, when you click the drop down here, you can look at which of the exposures have strayed away from SPNX tables. In this case, it says diamond rings have strayed away, and it tells you how much they have strayed away. And so you can go back and fix these in your script if you need to. All right, so diamond ring. Okay, so this part is because I went away from bracketed mode into single mode. So the key is, as long as you know what you're doing, you can ignore these. If you want to diligently follow SPNX recommendation, you should do that. And you can go back and fix the values. Okay, so with that, I am now going to, oh yes, this is what I was looking at. You can also look at individual settings here. You can also adjust individual settings here. That's another way to edit it. And you can save. Okay. Right, now let's go to execution. This is the fun part. Now I'm gonna go with test run. Mind you, on Eclipse Day, you should always set it to real time, no test runs. Okay. And yes, there is a pre-checklist. We want to make sure that you've completed a test run in the previous 24 hours. Your GPS is connected, your cameras are connected, and your script has contact times. But let's go back to test run, and I want to just test totality for now. Highly recommend that you test your full sequence of Eclipse multiple times. And I cannot emphasize on this. You must test your full sequence multiple times. It doesn't matter how long it takes. You are going to bound. You are going to find issues. You are going to find things that you might discover that you need to focus on, and you'd rather find those before in your trial runs rather than on Eclipse Day. But for today, I'm just going to focus on totality test. I have multi-camera support enabled, so I'm gonna run two cameras simultaneously. For my first script, I've picked Canon. I'm gonna go with shutter cable. I have three options: simulation, USB, and shutter. And unless you specifically want to go with USB, you can. I don't see any reason. I've always recommended using shutter cable mode. And then you pick the shutter cable. So for Canon, I've used DS-USB, and I'm gonna add another one. In here, there's a Nikon script. I forgot to name it, so it took the default name, shutter cable, and I picked the second shutter cable. Okay, and now I'm gonna go ahead and arm it. Okay, and now I'm gonna start it, and you can see the timeline, right? So this is the timeline. As you can see, we're getting close to diamond rings, and you should hopefully hear the clicks. There you go. Okay, so something's going on with the Nikon. Yeah, this is why you should test. This was working. Oh, okay, my Nikon battery is out. Okay, I should have checked on the battery. All right, so let's see what's going on. So you can see the logs for both the cameras, and you can see the exposures. You can see how the sequences are running against planned times. All right. Okay, I'm gonna stop this experiment for now. If you can always, click abort, and that'll pause the captures. Okay. I will fix the issue with my Nikon camera, but this is exactly why it's important for you to test your setup all the time. Okay, so with that, one last thing I wanted to show you was just live view. You should always use live view for focusing your camera. And I'm gonna pick Canon's live view. Right now it's staring against a wall, so you won't see anything. You can stop the live view, and I'm gonna pick the second camera, start live view, stop. Okay. I think that's it. There's a nice help section here that has a lot of good information. A lot of things that I've covered in this video has already been covered in the help section. So I would recommend please refer to it in case you run into any issues. If you don't find your answers in the help section, you're most welcome to reach out to me at support@eclipseclick.com. You can also reach out to me on my website. I have many ways to reach out to. You can post an issue on GitHub discussions. You can report a bug on GitHub. You can also post on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, on X, and also on YouTube as comments to this video. With that, I think that's all I have to cover for today. Thank you so much for your patience. As always, if you have any questions, run into issues, I'm very much reachable. Please do not hesitate to contact me. I will get back to you as soon as I can. All right, happy clicking, happy Eclipse.